Hey guys! Today we're going to talk about the two characters that live inside of you. I like to call them student you and expert you. Now, neither is right or wrong, but let's talk about how they're different. I'm going to tell you how, but I want you to do this along with me. Don't just take my word for it, test it and see if it's true. First, think about a time when you felt unsure about what to do next or how to handle the situation. Felt like a newbie, things felt wobbly and uncertain, and you were probably feeling anxious or afraid. Get that example clear in your mind. That is student you. Now, think about a time when you were totally in flow and on top of your game. You knew exactly what you were doing. You were calm, you were confident, you were in control. Get that example clear in your mind as well. That is expert you. Keep those two examples in your mind while you listen to me and see where you recognize yourself. Student you tries to do things right. What am I supposed to be doing right now? What's the right way to do this? What are the rules in the room? How can I get an A plus on the rubric? Those are the kinds of questions that student you likes to ask. Because student you is very focused on understanding what the standard of success is and then trying to measure up to it and prove themselves. And it's always an external standard of success because it doesn't even occur to student you to define success on their own terms. Student you says, no, 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 I'm just a newbie. I don't know what I'm doing. Someone else, please tell me what to do. Expert you, on the other hand, acts based on your instincts and your perspective. What do I think about this situation? What are my goals here? What do I think good looks like? What should I think I do next? These are the kinds of questions that expert you asks. An expert you is happy to hear other people's thoughts. They take note of all the rules and the rubrics that are happening in the room with curiosity. But they also know that all that stuff is just other people's opinions. And there's always room to do something else. And isn't it kind of fun to break the rules? So, after getting all the advice and you should do this type of perspectives from other people, expert you always comes home to what they think is effective, cool, fun, interesting, and the right next step, according to their own assessment. Student you really focuses on preparation. Have they had enough time to read over everything and plan what they'll say? Have they gotten through all the chapters and all the articles and done every quiz question? Have they thought through every scenario and prepared for all of them? Student you believes that preparation will make or break them. And if they're thrown into a situation with too little preparation, they just stay small, stay quiet, and wait for it to be over. Because obviously, they have nothing to add here. Expert you focuses on reacting live in the moment. It's not that expert you doesn't prepare, it's that they know that the magic isn't in the preparation. The magic happens in the moment, in the alchemy that happens between their brain and whatever is happening in front of them. And they know they have everything they need inside of them already, from their past experiences, their instincts, their knowledge, their quick mind. Their whole life has been preparation. So all they really need to do is pay attention to what's happening, run everything through their instincts and their discernment, and they'll know the right thing to say at the right moment. Because expert you spins gold from whatever is happening in front of them. Their value isn't in their preparation. Their value is in their presence. Student you, very concerned about standing out, looking weird, or making a bad impression. Student you's first question is, what is everyone else doing? And if everyone else is doing something, they better do it too. And if nobody is doing something, they better avoid it. Because being different in any way causes student you endless agony and embarrassment. Expert you, on the other hand, doesn't mind if people don't get it. When people say, what? You're doing that? That doesn't make any sense. Are you sure? Expert you says, don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. You'll see soon enough. Student you gets really hung up on tactics. Student you says, just tell me exactly what I should do. How exactly should I write this email? Should I use bullets or paragraphs? Should I put my ask at the beginning or at the end? Or what exactly should I say in this meeting? Should I stick to my agenda or should I be willing to jump around? Or how exactly should I study for the test? Should I review everything and then take the practice quiz? Or should I take the quiz first and then review things? Or they'll say, how exactly should I network? Should I talk to everybody in the room? Or should I focus on a few deeper conversations? Student U thinks that tactics are the solution to their problems because Student U thinks tactics create results. Expert U focuses on the goal. Expert U keeps their eyes on the destination and stays loose and flexible about how they get there. Sometimes they write emails in bullets, sometimes they do them in paragraphs. Depends on what the situation needs. In some meetings, they stick to the agenda and they rein everybody in. And in other meetings, they jump around or they just go ahead and derail the meeting themselves. It depends on what the situation needs. Sometimes they study by reviewing first and then taking the quiz. Other times they take the quiz first and then they review. It depends on what the situation needs. And sometimes they talk to every single person at the networking event. And other times they spend 90 minutes talking to one person. It depends on what the situation needs. Because Expert U knows there isn't any one set of correct tactics that work in every single situation. There's no right way to do it every time. Everything depends. And there are multiple paths to success. So, what Expert U does is keep the North Star clear in their mind and then decide live in the moment the best way to get there in this particular situation. Student U is crushed by mistakes, failures, and rejections. Whether it's a ding on a test, a no to a request, or just a weird look on someone's face when you tell them what you're doing, Student U dreads even the possibility that these things could happen. They go out of their way to keep themselves safe from these painful outcomes. They'll study for weeks and weeks because that's better than getting a ding. They don't even make the request because that's better than getting a no. They just say what they're supposed to say and not what they really think because that's better than getting that weird look. And when these things inevitably do happen, Student U retreats into their cave and never wants to come out ever again. Expert U is intrigued by unexpected results. Expert U doesn't even think about them as mistakes. Expert U thinks of them as interesting new data. So when Expert U builds a financial model that they're sure is going to work, and then they're confronted with rows and rows of errors in all the cells, or when Expert U says something that they're sure is going to resonate, but then they get a weird look and a no from the other person, they react to that situation the same way you would react if you threw a ball at the ceiling and it hung there floating in midair instead of coming back to the ground. You're like, what? Never seen this before. It's so unexpected. What is going on? Expert U doesn't try to avoid these situations because who wants to avoid new data? In fact, sometimes Expert U even wants to push the boundaries, break the so called rules, and see what happens next. Student U is not like your inner critic. It's not tearing you down or telling you that you're terrible, at least not explicitly. On the surface, Student U seems very practical and helpful and hardworking and dedicated. I mean, who's going to say that doing things right, preparing a lot, being normal, following best practice tactics, and avoiding mistakes are bad things to do? It's not that Student U has bad advice, it's that Student U operates on the assumption I don't really know what I'm doing. And Student U totally forgets about your knowledge, your expertise, your unique way of doing things, and the alchemical, unplannable power of your brain live in the moment when you give your full presence to whatever is happening in front of you and deeply, boundlessly trust yourself. Expert U operates on a different premise. Expert U says, I know what I'm doing. And from that premise, Expert U says, it's not that I'm going to do things wrong, show up unprepared, be weird, ignore best practices, and deliberately make mistakes. It's that I'm going to do things my way, prioritize live presence over rigid preparation, be myself, stay flexible on the tactics, and be willing to break things so I can learn from them. Student U loses out on all the best parts of you. Expert U is built on all the best parts of you. And guys, if I could flip a switch in your brain that made Expert You take over for the rest of your life, I would do it. But I just have not found that switch yet. So here's what I want you to do instead. First, get really good at recognizing when student you has taken over. Go back to your examples of when you were in 100% student you and when you were 100% expert you. How does student you think? How do they look out at the world? How do they feel in your body? What kinds of questions do they ask? What do they want to do? I've given you 5 clear indicator lights for when student you has taken over. And come up with some more of your own if you can. Then, every time you notice that student you has taken over, pause and ask, how would expert you handle this situation? I want you to think of your life as if it was a giant maze. Expert you has already taken over large parts of this maze. There are certain situations and certain circumstances where expert you comes to the front effortlessly. For example, when you're well prepared, when you have deep knowledge of the subject at hand, when you're giving advice, when you've seen this before and done this before, that's when expert you automatically takes charge. And there are certain parts of this maze that expert you has not yet explored. These are the situations and circumstances where it feels hard or unintuitive to be expert you. For example, when you're not prepared, when you don't have deep knowledge of the subject, when you're doing something for the first time, when you're the one with the problem, not the one with the answer. Every time you run into a part of the maze that expert you hasn't explored yet, it's time to break new ground. Don't shrink back and let student you take over. Ask yourself, how does expert you handle this? The more times you do this, the more you will expand expert you's territory until piece by piece, you've shed light on every last corner of this maze and you've figured out how to act like expert you almost all of the time. And don't be surprised when you have to do this again at every new level. Because paradoxically, it's often easier to tap into expert you when you know less, have less experience, and have less success. Because you just don't yet know the constraints. You haven't felt the pain of failure yet, and you don't have as much to lose. So you're full of hope and bravado, and you're excited to do things your way. It's very normal as you gain experience and gain success to also become more fearful and want to retreat backward into the safety of being student you, of telling yourself, I don't know what I'm doing. Someone else tell me what to do. But all that really happened is this. You figured out how to be expert you at one level. It worked. You were successful. And therefore, you leveled up and gained access to a whole new part of the maze that you've never seen before. And nothing is going wrong when this happens. You haven't lost it. You're not a fraud. You've just unlocked next level problems. And all you have to do is break even more ground in this new part of the maze to learn how to be expert you here too. Guys, I've done several sessions recently with clients about this exact topic, where we spent a full hour clearly mapping out what the expert and the student look like within them, anchoring those examples so they know exactly when they've slipped into one or the other, noticing all the sneaky ways that student you tries to take over and catching them, breaking that new ground, figuring out how expert them would handle the situation they're currently facing. And then they go off into the world, they try actually being expert them in real life situations, and they come back and we analyze what worked and what didn't. And as is so often the case, this is an ongoing process and a practice, not a one time fix. And with all things that require ongoing maintenance, that process moves more smoothly and efficiently when you have structure, support, and expertise that keep you on track and prevent you from ever backsliding too far. I've laid out the path clearly for you, as clearly as I possibly could. And now I want you to walk down this path as easily and directly as possible. Don't wait another day. Come talk to me and let's get started. Go to the link above and book a free coaching consult.